All right, welcome to the latest edition of the Faithful Five podcast. I am here with well-known real estate developer Ed Morris. Ed, welcome. Tell us, give us a 5-second bio on your background and your family.
Thank you, Tom. Great to be here. I grew up in Havertown, one of 9 kids, all 1 year apart. Pretty cool. I love saying that. I have 6 kids of my own, fifth grandchild on the way. Grew up in Havertown and went to Archbishop Carroll. Live in Malvern now, St. Norbert's Parish with you. Uh, all is good.
All right, sounds like it's good. So talk a little bit about your faith journey. When did it start? Did something trigger it? Or give us some background on where your journey started and where it's taken you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I love that question because I'm fortunate. I had faith from day one. I remember being an older boy. I can remember serving my first mass, and it was a blast. So, and I never missed Sunday mass in my entire life. I kind of call it my Cal Ripken streak, but I've never missed it, and I like to keep that going. But I've always had a strong faith, and I may have gotten it from my mother, who had a tremendous faith herself. She had 9 kids. I lost a sister due to cancer at the age of 7. I was 8, very close to her. My father struggled. My mother worked full time, but never had a bad day in her life, never got mad, never raised her voice, and just kept plowing ahead. So I think she gave me a nice foundation.
So you never missed mass once on Sunday. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, I always said that, if you don't go to church, you can't learn anything. But if you do go, you may have a chance of learning something. So I always said, give yourself the opportunity to learn. Get into the building. Maybe he'll talk to you.
Okay, I'll go back to that. So this may tie to the first question. Talk about the most influential person in your life. It can be someone that, it can be faith related or otherwise, or maybe pointing you in a certain direction about your faith, and where did it take you?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad I mentioned my mother because she's certainly an absolute leader in my life. Loved her dearly. Great, great lady. But the real answer to that question is everybody I meet. I believe everybody that God made is absolutely perfect. And when I see anybody, I always analyze what they're saying. I try to be quiet, try to listen, try to learn. But literally, I love talking to people because they're so brilliant and they really don't understand how brilliant they really are. I love to help people reach their potential. I do a lot of events at the church and all that, and I've had 220 different speakers. And every time I've had a speaker, they've always said, "Ed, I can't do that. I'm not a public speaker." And I say, "Hang in there. You watch what will happen." And they all hit grand slams, every one of them. So I love the question, Tom, because my true answer is everybody I meet inspires me because God made each one of them, and He does not make mistakes. And everyone has something for me to learn. So I love talking to everybody.
So talk a little bit about is there someone that over the last couple of years that has really inspired you from over the 200 some people that you've had speak at your, Team Hope events?
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. I mean, having been there, I know there's a lot of them, but I'm sure there's a couple of them that are memorable and why they're memorable.
Yeah. Well, the buddy that you interviewed used me to, he's a great role model of mine. And I see all the great work he does out there in the community. And when he does big things, I always say I could do big things also. And so every Friday morning, I'm with youth and 100 different men for 18 years now. We do a gospel reflection on Friday morning. And so he's an absolute leader in my life. But where I've gotten most of my motivation is I had 3 or 4 very close friends that have passed away. And when they got sick, people were going to have beef and beers and events to help raise a couple bucks. And I kept saying to myself, what's a beef and beer going to do for this person? They're very sick. We need to get into a church. And I'll never forget one day my great friend Lefty got sick and he had an aneurysm, was in a coma. And me and my friends just texted around. And the next day at St. Dennis Church, 300 people showed up in one day.
Wow.
And they all wanted to pray for Lefty. And they came up to me afterwards and said, "Ed, that felt good. That's a great idea. We should do it again." I said, "Really?" I said, "Okay." So I called Father Kevin Gallagher at St. Dennis and I said, "Hey, Father, is the church open on Thursday?" He goes, "Absolutely." 400 people showed up. And that was 5 years ago. And bottom line is I've never stopped bringing people to the church since. We have these prayer services. I call them friendship celebrations now. They're a party. The church is such a fun place to be in. My goal is to make people help them come back to the church in a fun way. And it's been great.
Well, that's awesome. So good transition here. What do you think, and we're talking about guys, what do you think is the biggest obstacle for men to live their faith, talk about their faith, or, all the above? Where do the walls come up with this? Because you've certainly done a great job bringing those walls down.
Yeah. Another brilliant question. And I think it comes down to an example of what you're doing. You've had this event now. You made your move. I made my move with my prayer services. I think the reason why guys struggle talking about their faith is they don't make their move. They don't try it. They don't understand the joy that they'll receive when they start talking about the Lord, and that when the Lord will work bigger in their lives. Actually, he works big in their lives, but they'll see how he works in their lives. So I think the biggest challenge that guys have is to break the ice, get out there, try something, and fail at it. I mean, if someone were going to say to you, Tom, hey, I want you to speak about your faith in front of 300 people for the very first time, you'd say, whoa, 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 that's not what I do. But if you do it once, when you get done, you'll sit back and say, wow, I wish I said this, or I wish I said that. And you'll also say things that you'll say that, wow, I can't believe I did say that. I can't believe that came out of me. And in my case, the first time I did my events, I didn't look at the audience. I had notepads in front of me. I was fumbling around, and I was so bad. I filmed them and I watch it. Now I can't wait to get up there. I have no script. God just completely takes over. It's so fun, and I've gotten good at it. But I have fun at it, and I think so. The answer is, if people would make their move, if guys would, leaders of the family would go make their move, they couldn't believe how talented they are. They would unyield that faith that they have that they don't even know they have. But if they make that first move, they won't stop. It's so fun.
We'll put a little tip around that. I mean, it's easy to say that with men, but sometimes our pride, or if it's not something that is not socially correct, but we have all the obstacles, pride, excuses. How about some tips?
It's not cool, right? It's not cool.
It's not
not
cool.
cool.
Let's
Yeah. Well, and you're right. It doesn't appear to be cool initially, but after a while, it is so cool. I'll give you an example. If I lead my life, I'm out there sinning. I don't feel good, but I go to confession. I get all cleaned up. I feel great. I could run the mile in 4 minutes. I could run a 10 flat 100. I can do anything when I get cleaned up. And so they got to get out there and try stuff like that. And people don't realize at the beginning of Mass, when the priest walks down the aisle, all your venial sins are forgiven. People don't realize that just by being in church, it's like going to confession. But it's so great when they get the joy of that. So they have to understand all the gifts of the church, the gifts of adoration, the gifts of confession, the gifts of the Eucharist, and that'll bring such power to them. And they'll realize, wow, I could be so much happier if God is in my life. Help them get along with their wives, help them get along with their kids, help them get along with everything. I mean, when I live my life, if I'm in a situation and I have to make a decision, I don't make it in the secular world or in the materialistic world that we're in. And I say, that makes sense. Based on all that facts, I'm going to do this. And then I say to myself, what would God want me to do? And it's always a totally different answer. And I immediately change that. And I do what he wants me to do. And he's always right. And the decisions are better. And I cruise on a lot smoother because I worked it out with him. So there's so much joy in getting close to the Lord. And there's also good business in it.
So it's a good transition. I want to go back though. So what I hear you saying is what feeds your faith a lot of times, obviously, is meeting and talking to different people and expressing your faith, but it's also, the sacraments, prayer, trying to start a conversation with God and include him in everything you're doing, including the business world.
I absolutely do. I absolutely do. And I love talking to people, and we'll just talk it just in business in general. If I look at a situation, I try to do what is right for the business, for my customer, for everyone involved, for myself, for my family. I always look to do the right thing. I always look to forgive people. A couple of years ago, I had a father that struggled with alcohol his whole life, and he'd passed away 10 years ago. And I remember just driving down the road one time, and I just felt bitter. I just wish I had a better relationship with him when he was on this earth. And then God just said, "Forgive him, Ed." I said, "Wow, what a great idea." And I just said, look up the sky. I said, "To my dad, I forgive you." And I heard him say, "I forgive you too, Ed," because I wasn't real good with it. And from that point forward, in the rest of my life, I talk about forgiveness. And when I meet anybody, we just chat about life. How's your family and all that? How many siblings do you have? And are you close with them? I say, "Well, yeah, I'm close with three of them. One I don't talk to." And boom, there I go. Why don't you talk to him? Call him up right now. Fix it. Give him new life. Give yourself new life. Clear that aggravation out of your life, and you'll be so much happier. So many people have done that, and they become better people. So it doesn't matter where I'm in business. I try to get people to do what's right, repair relationships, bring the best out of people, reach your potential, have fun, but bring the Lord and Mary into the equation.
Amen. The world could use about a couple million of you, Eddie, and we'd be in a better place, right?
Oh, without question, I love, you talk to priests, you talk to nuns, you talk to anybody, but just talk to good people. And it's so easy to be good. And it's so comforting to be good. Like, I don't carry any anger. No, I have a wife, 6 kids, 4 girls, 5 grandkids, 5 on the way. I mean, they're at me all the time. And they say tough things, as we know. And while they're saying those things, I've pretty much forgiven them as their lips are moving. Right away. Right away. I always say, somebody come up here, punch me, knock me on the ground, and I'll get up and say, "Hey, why don't we go get a beer together?" I hold harbor no ill feelings to anybody.
So how about a practical tip or two where you're able to, what do you do to everyone has tough days, or you have a tough time with your wife or one of your kids, or what do you do to re-energize
Mm-hmm.
faith
Yeah.
perspective? What's your go-to besides obviously conversing
Yeah.
with the spirit?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I mean, I really don't never go anywhere without my little rosary ring here. It's usually in my pocket. And when times get tough, I'll just sit back and just stop, take a deep breath, put my hand in my pocket, and just hold on to this. Deep breath, relax, maybe say a Hail Mary, and just chill. And then think about God and tell him, "Hey, I'm struggling right now. Need a little help." And we just chat. And he always answers. He's always ready for a conversation. But I take a lot of deep breaths, and I just step back, and I think of everybody in the area. I say, "Hey, that person's not real happy. That person's a little angry." Try to defuse everything and bring a positive spin into something, and it usually works for me.
That's awesome. What going back to your mom and the foundation, just touch a little bit. You never went to church, or you went to church every Sunday. I'm sure there were plenty times when little Eddie Mo didn't want to go to mass, or maybe wasn't paying attention. But what did your mom instill in you, and what did she have? Obviously, that you wanted some of that. You wanted that peace and calmness, and now kind of you're living it. What was it back in your younger days? I know that's a hard question, but
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's a great story. One time we're in Havertown at the kitchen dinner table, 9 Morrises, my mom and my dad there, and my mom goes to me. We're all like 14 years old and down, all 1 year apart. And my mother said, "Let me tell you a story. One time I was ice skating down at Kelly's Pond in Havertown, and the ice broke and she fell through the ice. And it was only her and her friend. Her friend was all the way at the other end, and my mother was on the other side, and she fell into the ice. And then she looked up, and she has a whole bunch of people were there pulling her out of the ice. And then she got up on the top of the ice, and nobody was there. And me and my brother were like, wow. And we already knew my mother would never fib. And we're like, wow, she's a real saint. And I never, when she told me that story, I said, well, there's something very special about her. And in my life, 3 different times, people would come up to me and say, hey, are you Ed Morris? I said, yeah. He goes, well, I got to introduce myself to you. I just met your mother. There's something very special about her, and I just had to tell you. And I would say, yep, I know. So, just being around her was amazing. As I mentioned earlier, I had a sister that died at the age of 7 from cancer, and my mother was never really mad. I always felt, she said, well, I know little Francis is with God, but I always felt that my mother at that point was never angry or worried about dying, because if she did, she would then be with her daughter. I don't think she feared anything. And I got a lot of strength from that. So she hung in there, but she knew at the end it was a monster payday. And I also believe there's a monster payday. If I can somehow get through this time on earth and be good and get into heaven, I'm guaranteed hundreds of millions of years of pure joy. And I hope I can get there.
Thanks for sharing, Eddie. I appreciate you taking the time to join the Faithful Five, and look forward to catching up soon.